Welcome to the S&M Bar in Wellington, a second home to Georgina Beyer. This was where her closest friends gathered to plot fundraising campaigns, party and laugh. It's only fitting that tonight, beneath glam shots of her decorating the wall, we gather to celebrate the colourful life of an extraordinary game changer in this special episode on Georgina Beyer. Kia ora, welcome to the iconic S&M Bar here in Wellington. We're celebrating the life of Georgina Beyer, an icon herself, and I'm with the two owners here, Scotty and Mel.
Kia ora.
Hey, thanks for letting us hang in here, it's beautiful.
Oh, pleasure. Welcome, welcome. All for a good cause.
Oh yeah, hey, How long have you both known Georgina for?
I myself have known Georgina for over 50 years.
Yeah.
I'd be just on over 30 since we met.
Tell me about the bonfire.
I distinctly remember we'd work at the Oaks coffee shop, we'd go home and get changed up, and Georgie would go down to the Club Exotic where she was doing a bit of stripping there. And one night she said to me when we got home, "Lordy, Lordy, there's got to be a better life than this." That's the time we saw Georgina change. We had a big bonfire. She biled all of her clothes out into the back garden, doused them all in petrol. Boom. George is dead. Georgina is here. Amazing.
So Scotty, what sort of characteristics would you associate with Georgina when you think about her? What words spring to mind?
Just phenomenal. She's just an amazing person. We forged a friendship after myself and Mel got together in just over 30 years ago. I got introduced to Georgie, and yeah, because I was Mel's partner, she accepted me straight away. She was very accepting, and we just carried on a great friendship, and it lasted up until last Monday. It'll last on forever.
So you have had these Monday night soirees, and just tell me about those.
Well, where do we start? It was after Georgina had actually had her transplant, the kidney transplant. She was as thin as a rake. We need to make sure she's well and truly looked after. So we'd bring her around and say, "Girl, let's make Monday night our catch-up night." That's when we get up and we talk about everything that's happened in the week. And she'd come around every Monday night, and they were fun. They were fun nights. And she would knock on the door and then bolt in, and she'd be screeching, "Rah, rah, rah, rah," and you'd think, "Sit down, calm down."
Halfway through something. And we'd go, "Sit down, girl, get a drink, and now start from the start," because we kind of missed that. You were outside.
Yeah. I mean, are you still going to have the Monday night soirees?
We'll still have people around on a Monday, but it'll never be the same.
We think it's quite ironic that Georgie actually passed away on the Monday, around about the time she'd usually arrive at our house. It's almost one of those spiritual things that, I'm going to hang on.
Yeah.
It's my Monday.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Her timing was pretty impeccable on lots of things, eh?
Sometimes. Sometimes, yeah.
Quip was always well timed, but yeah.
Hey, thank you both. Really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure.
And we are going to walk down memory lane now and have a look at some of those amazing things that Georgina did, which labelled her, I guess, as a feisty, fabulous game changer.
Georgina Beyer, the boy who grew up in Wellington and transitioned into a woman in 1984 and then went on to become a true warrior.
The first transsexual in New Zealand to be standing in this House of Parliament. I stated at that time that this was the stallion that became a gelding and then a mare, and now, Mr. Speaker, as it was at the time, I found myself to be a member. Well, Madam Speaker, can I say to you at this point that while I have relished the opportunity at being a member in this House, I am glad I don't possess one. And
a fearless campaigner for the likes of prostitution law reform and civil unions, she won the Wairarapa seat for Labour in 1999, having seen off national candidate Paul Henry and after a stint as mayor of Carterton.
this is a victory that we should relish.
We did it!
From there, she never backed down, taking it to Brian Tamaki and Destiny Church when they marched on Parliament in protest against the Civil Union Bill.
Brian Tamaki has said some rather awful things about me on his television show, and I'd like to give him the opportunity now to apologise to me if he feels that that is something he could do, because they were hurtful, Brian.
She served for 7 years after an equally eventful public career as a singer, drag queen and sex worker. In 2017, she received a kidney transplant after suffering renal failure. In 2020, she was celebrated in the Queen's Birthday's honours. Georgina Beyer was 65.
Wonderful memories there. And now I'm speaking with Dame Catherine Healy. When did you meet Georgina?
Kia ora. I think I met Georgina in the late 90s when we were pushing for prostitution law reform, which was achieved in 2003. And thereafter, you know, we met frequently on different platforms. So yeah, she was great for us in so many ways, and then she wasn't, and we had to pull her back in.
I wanted to talk to you about that. So just tell me about what the challenges were around that piece of legislation.
Well, I think it was really reflected on her character because, you know, she thought deeply about issues, and we assumed through that process of getting the law changed that Georgie got it. There was no need to really lobby Georgie. She got it, she understood. She'd swan into meetings and she'd flap around and say, oh yeah, good, all on track. But then she was lobbied quite hard by an American academic who was a fundamentalist of everything. And Georgina was like, well, you know, I didn't know about those sorts of issues. So when it came to the second reading of the Prostitution Reform Act, we were holding our breath because we had heard that Georgina was going to vote against it. However, in the meantime, we'd ensured that some old friends of hers had gone to her and said, no, come on, Georgina, you know what we put up with.
Yeah.
And so she came with such a potent speech, and the look on the people who thought she was going to jump sides was priceless, you know, the look on their faces. And Georgina rose to the occasion, swiped the floor, you know, just reduced them so beautifully.
Thank you, Dame Catherine, for your insights. After the break, we meet some politicians and talk to them about their insights into Georgina Beyer. Kia ora and welcome back to the special on Georgina Beyer. Now, Cherie, you met Georgina, I suppose, a lot later than other people, and you did a roadie with her. Tell me about that.
Yes, I met Georgina around 12 years ago, and that was the time where she wasn't in Parliament, she didn't have a job, so I knew her differently. But she did get some gigs, and some of them were pretty good and some of them weren't so good. And she got me to travel around the South Island with her with Internet Mana. And we hooked
Kim.com?
Yes, Kim.com.
Right, okay.
I was trying not to say that.
Oh, okay. And so you're the chauffeur, right?
Yes, and she was in the back of the car hooking up her dialysis. It was a lot of work because we had lots of those liquid boxes to carry around with us in and out of hotels. But yeah, I think we got as far as Queenstown, and she threw the towel in, had a wobbly on TV, told them she didn't want to do it anymore, and left me with the car, and I just carried on South Island having a lovely holiday.
Queenstown, that's that timing again. What a great place to chuck the towel in. Yeah. What do you think her legacy is, Andre?
At the time I first met her, because I'm close family friends with Cherie, that were around at Cherie's house, and at that time I was a closeted pastor, really struggling to accept my own sexuality, and I was actually ashamed of who I was. And I would listen to Georgina's stories, really, of her facing and overcoming incredible adversity and not being embarrassed of her past in any way. And I think that was the strength I needed to nudge me over the edge and eventually come out. So I think she's been an incredible influence politically, human rights, but then also the impact that she's had on just individuals like myself that don't even know her that well. She's really made us feel comfortable in who we are, and we honour her and respect her so much.
Oh, kia ora, Andre. We're going to head to Parliament now and listen to some of the MPs who've had a bit to do with Georgina, but also those who have been inspired by her. When did you first meet Georgina?
I think it was 2017 at a Wellington Pride event where I was just a young candidate vying for office, and Georgina was there. I introduced myself to her and she was immediately gracious and was from that day forward. And I have this vivid memory of a Pride event where we were all politicians hovering to go up on stage and speak, and there was some suggestion that I might not get to speak because I was just the national rep. And she barged her shoulders in and she said, "You watch that, because we do better as a community when we have supporters on all sides of Parliament. So you'll let Nicola speak." And she got up, she went on that stage and she gave me the most gracious introduction. And I'll never forget that. It's a powerful way to be.
She was a staunch activist and used to speaking her mind and being upfront and being her. In Parliament, there's absolutely an expectation, and you're judged at a way different and way higher standard. So the fact that she was able to stay true to herself is an inspiration to all of us. I wish that more of us could be authentically who we are in this place that is often toxic and quite at the opposite end of Te Ao Māori.
How did you meet Georgina?
I've known her since I was a kid. She used to work with my mum in Carterton and used to babysit me around that time. So you could say I've sort of known her my whole life, really.
What were her kind of like, her wins on the board there?
I think at the end of the day, New Zealanders, and in particular rural people, they take you as you come. So if you're a bit of a dick to them, then they won't really like it. If you're a good person, and obviously a good person, they don't really care what you've done before them because you've treated them well and they'll give you a fair crack. And that's sort of what happened with Georgina, I think. I mean, if we cast our mind back to the time sort of around that early 90s period, when she would have moved to Carterton, it would have been a completely different world to now. Like, she'd be walking down the street and people would have stopped and thought, that's a bloke in a dress. Do you know, like, totally ignorant to different genders and the concept of a transgender person judging by appearance or past as opposed to who they are. But for her to turn that around so quickly and then get elected to Carterton Council and then 2 years later get elected as mayor, and then in subsequent elections getting over 90% of the vote, that says a lot about her, I think.
It's quite amazing, isn't it?
Oh, it's incredible. I don't think that there'd be a voting record for anyone. Not even Tim Shepard would have got that much vote in his day, you know? Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah. What would you say that was her special skill?
Her wit. I remember during a candidate debate, someone yelled out, "Where's your penis?" She says, "It's on a jar on the mantelpiece. Where's yours?" And the place just cracked up. They just absolutely lost it. And this guy was humiliated and no one ever said a thing again.
She was intelligent, fierce, courageous, and exuded this confidence, in who she was. She knew who she was.
In the rainbow community, there's a lot of people who are very vocal. They call a spade a spade. They can sometimes be inappropriate at the most inappropriate times, and that was her BAU. That was her norm, and so she was able to call things out when she saw it being done.
What was the funeral like? How did you feel? What was it like?
My takeaway from the funeral was that she'd had a rough time in the past reconciling her whakapapa and her tribal connection with her identity. And that came through in a few of the speeches, and rightfully so. She wanted to have a final service at Pipitea Marae. It's one of her marae. She wanted to reconcile some of that hara that had gone on in the past and go the way that, you know, Māori do, under the guidance of the paipai, under the karakia that was had. She wanted to do it that way. So I think it was really important that we had that.
What did you have to do with Georgina when she came?
She was just a good mate. I'd always catch up with her and have a few laughs with her because I said, oh, you're driving your Labour Party crew crazy. You know, but she was different, our Georgie. I mean, look at her funeral. She died and she was gone 24 hours later. No tangi, no memorial, just her closest group. That's not how we should have let her go out. Somebody should have taken over and just said, no, we know her wishes, but tikanga Māori takes over here and we're going to have a big celebration of her life, you know, because she deserved it.
I think Tamati was saying it kind of exemplified some of the tensions she had as a Māori.
I think she was a bit torn, you know, because, you know, a lot of people would have thought she would have been as liberal as anything, but Georgie wasn't at times. She was quite a conservative. And my understanding watching her is she used to irritate a number of her colleagues because of these contrary views, but I thought that exemplified us well as Māori. What I think is the shame was with Georgie, because we went in 1999 and she came out in 2007,
yes,
is that she didn't become a minister.
Yes, and I was going to ask you about, did you have hear anything about why?
Well, she was here for 8 years and there was one boss and it was Helen Clark, so might have to ask Helen.
What special memory or story do you have about Georgina?
I stood with her on the steps of Parliament the day that Brian Tamaki and his mob arrived for the Enough is Enough march. And there was a group of us, we were holding a rainbow flag, and it was quite overwhelming. There were thousands of people coming onto the grounds, and Georgie was getting more and more upset. And then all of a sudden she just took off and she went down the steps, and I remember thinking, she's going to get killed. And so I followed her down, and then I walked a few steps behind her as she went along the front, berating these people.
I'm going to come and look at each and every one of you. I don't mind at all. How dare you use the cloak of Christianity when you are imparting to your children prejudice, discrimination toward people like me?
And it was the bravest, most courageous thing I think I'd ever seen. It also, I thought, what are you doing? But actually that was Georgina, because she felt so strongly about these sorts of issues. She didn't care about any of that. And she was always there to stand up for the marginalised or the voiceless.
So everyone says she was a great communicator.
I think that's a big part of it. I mean, one of my most clear memories of Georgina was here in Parliament when she spoke in the final reading of the Prostitution Law Reform Bill. And Georgina was a little bit ambivalent about the bill and just talked about this later afterwards about, you know, just what would it really mean for prostitutes. But she supported the bill, and we got to the final reading and we didn't know if it was going to pass. It was on a knife edge. And she gave the most electric speech I've ever seen in Parliament.
I support this bill for all the prostitutes I have ever known who died before the age of 20.
And she talked about her time as a prostitute, and she talked about things that had happened to her that were absolutely awful.
It would have been nice to have known that instead of having to deal out the justice myself afterwards to that person, I may have been able to approach the authorities, the police in this case, and say, I was raped! And yes, I'm a prostitute, and no, it was not right that I should have been raped because I said no.
And the pure, raw, authentic emotion of that moment, I believe, put that bill through. It passed 60 to 59 with one abstention. And I think what Georgie did that day, her communication that day, is what got that bill through.
What's a word that you would use to describe her?
Just rangatira.
Yeah, I'm sure she had a lovely send-off with you all, you know, and the party will continue. Because she made her mark, didn't she?
She did. For me, she left me a list of jobs.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
That sounds familiar. Someone did it. Lovely kōrero. Now, I'm here in the S&M bar in Wellington, iconic place, to talk about an icon. So, lovely to meet you ladies. Could you tell me when you met Georgina there, Renee?
Okay, I met Georgina about 1979, 1980. I come down to Wellington. I was still in Butch. Went up to the Exotic to try and get a job, 'cause I had no money. And I ended up getting a job up there stripping as a male. And then a couple of weeks later, I met Georgie and Dana because they were working over at the old Purple Onion. And that's how I met her. She taught me about presentation, how to act in a crowd.
Yeah.
She taught me a lot.
That'd be a good training ground.
Well, she taught me how to be strong.
Yeah.
You know, because I thought she was angelic. But when I saw her get angry, I said, oh, I'm glad she's not getting angry at me.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, because she was a pretty strong person.
Yeah.
She had amazing personality.
We did a show called Playgirls, and she was in there, and she did Mae West, and she was amazing. I was always fascinated with Georgina Beyer because when she, the way she spoke to you in life and the way she spoke as a politician, she was very, very articulate in the words that she used, and she had a beautiful way of putting words, and that was her political side. But then she had her Queenie side, which was
Love that Queenie side.
yeah, she had her Queenie side, which was fun and loving, and you know, she had a heart for what she did because she'd been through those hard times as us girls have, and come out shining. And it's because of those that have gone before her, like Carmen, because Carmen laid the pathway for Georgina to enter political spaces, and she made history as well.
Do you think younger people know about her enough?
There is a lot of history that needs to be continuously told in terms of our stories. I don't think that her or Carmen are any different to Whina or to Mirasazi, because in their own light they have led our people forward. And I think that's really important, that their history should be told and their history should be recognised, and they should be sung about, like at places like Matatini. They should be given the mana that they deserve in the same light as if it was anyone else.
Tēnā koe, kia ora. After the break, we're with her former secretary while she was in Parliament and the Mayor of Carterton. Kia ora and welcome back. I'm with Karen and Richie. Now, Karen, you were Georgina's executive assistant when she was at Parliament. What sort of boss was she?
I have no complaints. She was lovely. I stayed with her for 7 years. Wow. I enjoyed working with her, yeah.
Was she organised, or did you have to organise her?
I had to organise her. She wasn't that organised, no. But, yeah, she was good.
Tell me about her technical abilities.
They were zero. So we started with a computer with a password, and 7 years later she left. That computer is still there with a password.
Yes.
Never opened, upgraded over the years, but never used.
I heard that she called a computer a box.
Yes. No, it wasn't something that she wanted, no.
Yeah. Well, what did you observe in Parliament was her skill?
I think she was a strong speaker, a very strong speaker. She was able to speak off the cuff. She didn't need any notes. She didn't really need to read a lot of information. She was well informed though, but yeah, very good at speaking.
What particular story or memory do you have of her?
I just remember one day I was in the kitchen, obviously not having a very good day at work, and just, arm on the shoulder, how you doing, Richie? Talk to me. And it was just really nice, just genuine, face-to-face.
So, Richie, she was persuaded to dance.
Yes, Dancing with the Stars, fantastic.
Yeah. She was a bit of a star on that, wasn't she?
She was. And somewhere in the Wairarapa there's a red ball gown, which may or may not be at my house, and it fits quite well.
Now, about 4 weeks ago, Georgina did a video here. It almost went viral. I think it went on television just before Kylie Minogue popped up. So there you go. Here's a taste.
Kia ora, tātou katoa, and warm greetings from Aotearoa, New Zealand, and the rainbow community. One of the things that we're proud of is that currently we have the largest number of out rainbow members of Parliament, 16 in our 120 member Parliament. In 1995, I became mayor of a small rural district northeast of Wellington in New Zealand. And in 1999, I became a member of Parliament. In doing so, I became the world's first out transgender woman to be elected to high office. Pride to me is a time of reflection upon how much we have gained over the years, but also a cautionary note that the rights that have been hard-earned are fragile. Happy World Pride, and turn it up so loud we can hear it in Aotearoa, New Zealand.
She's a great performer, and we're in S&M Bar here in Wellington, and I'm with the current Mayor of Carterton, Ron Mark. You and Georgie actually had quite a lot in common when I think about it.
Yeah, we did. I guess it was that helped underpin the building of a friendship, and definitely for me, the respect. You can't ignore an upbringing like hers, and the synergy between her and I in that respect was too close to ignore. So I think right from the start I respected her. Then I became like Carterton, came to really like her, and then to love her, and, you know, for the person she was.
You know what's amazing is that Carterton elected her. She's Māori, she's transgender, she's a woman, the first woman. I mean, what's in the water in Carterton?
Well, you could well ask. I mean, I think Carterton has underplayed its importance for a long time, and other neighbouring cities tend to look down their nose at little rural towns like Carterton, and they love to proclaim how inclusive they are and how liberal and open-minded they are. But you know, Wellington didn't select and elect a transgender mayor back in 1995 nor 1998. And Wairarapa as a whole, and I always say this, you know, people in Carterton saw her and got to know her. She was working for Paul Henry in those days, and they came to respect her. Then they selected her, then they elected her, and then based on the way she performed and did the job and put Carterton on the map and represented them so forcefully and powerfully and passionately, as well as the other issues that she stood for, equality, I think people just came to really love her, and they became very, very proud of her. And you can't go through the streets of Carterton and say a bad word against Georgina Beyer, because you know that wouldn't be healthy for you, you know, because they love her.
What do you think her legacy is?
She was fierce. I mean, if you're going to take Georgina on in an argument, you had to be ready, because we're going to be no rules. There's going to be no breaks given. It was just, gloves are off, and if you're going to be an idiot, you're going to be dealt to. And I think
did she ever deal to you?
No, well, I don't think we had that sort of relationship. But I think what she did deal to me in is she pushed us on our perceptions and our prejudices, and she made us look at ourselves, and that included me. I was born in 54. I was a boy raised in rural Pahiatua, Wairarapa, with all the conservatism that brings, and so you grow with these views, and then you're confronted with someone who's as smart, as bright, as vibrant, as energetic and powerful as that. You go, well, I guess I'm a bit of a dick, you know, time to grow up, and that's where you end up. Then engaging with her in Parliament, you know, and seeing the little sneaky trips out the back with her and Winston puffing on a cigarette out in the alley and drawing away and listening to her for 10 minutes. You knew you were in the presence of a great woman, and that's it.
Thank you, Ron, for joining me today. Really appreciate it. Okay, I think we should do a song.
You think?
Yeah. Hey, you're a bit of a muso.
Oh.
Come on, you guys, come over here. Hold on. Let's do a song for Georgina. Let's raise a toast to Georgie. So, kia ora, Georgie, and here's a song you might know for her. Black pearl, precious little girl, let me put you up where you belong. Black pearl, precious little girl, you've been in the background much too long.